Okay guys, so day 3 on my tomato base projects. We are on recipe number 3. We did, actually number 4. We did the tomato base that made the tomato sauce, if you want to go back and watch that. Then we did a Copycat Sweet Baby Ray's barbecue sauce. There's a video for that. I actually did spaghetti sauce, but it was off video because it was just a Mrs. Wages package. I just did that because I had extra sauce. I needed it on the shelf, and that's what we use. So the 4th recipe, but 3rd video in this series, is going to be like a Copycat Manwich Sloppy Joe mix. Again, I've never made this. This is one of the new items that's going on the pantry. So this is day 2 of doing the tomato base here in the roaster oven. So I'm going to do as I did the first time, and I'm going to go ahead and immersion blend this, and then whenever we get ready to put it in the pot, I'm going to run it through the food mill to get it nice and thick and get all the seeds and skins and everything like that out. I could go ahead and just run it through the food mill first and not the immersion blender. That's kind of not how I like to do it. I like to go ahead and get all the tomato base and everything kind of all chopped up, what I'm going to use as much as I can. And then that way the immersion blender takes out the skins in the holes of the side of the immersion blender, as you see here. And then whenever I run it through the food mill, it takes the seeds out. So I can take the skins out and freeze them for later, and then take the seeds out separately. So I'm going to get this all blended down, and I'll bring you back and we'll start making Sloppy Joe mix. Okay, so like I said before, we are testing these recipes out because we're trying to get as close to what we're used to eating as possible. My family doesn't like a whole lot of variation. Sloppy Joes is something we never eat. I think we've eaten maybe 2 times in the 15 years me and Steven have been married. Well, I thought it was because he didn't like them, but come to find out, it is because they're always too greasy for him. And I always use deer, so it must be the sauce. And somehow, whatever is in it, whatever is making the Sloppy Joes, they're always too greasy. I know in the school system, whenever we were growing up, we had Sloppy Joes in our schools, and they were greasy, but it was because of the meat. So I'm going to try to attempt to make the same flavor, since he does like that flavor. Just keep it to be that non-greasy texture. So this is what we're starting out with. Okay, and you see I've kind of made some changes. So we're going to start with that basic recipe. I'll let you know any changes I make during this video, and then I'll have the finalized recipe down below. So we're going to start out with the basics, and it's going to be the tomato base that we have been making, and then we're going to do onions and green peppers, bell peppers, whatever color you want to do, and then just salt, pepper, garlic, celery seed, which again I don't have celery seed because that was also in the barbecue sauce. I'm doing celery salt, and I'm adjusting the salt on this recipe because of that, and I'll put that note down below if you're using celery salt to decrease the regular salt. And then chili powder and mustard. Now, on a side note, I put down here some recipes had brown sugar and Worcestershire sauce and paprika. So I made those notes down here at the bottom, and I'm going to make the base recipe, and if I want it a little bit sweeter, or you know, to add those smoky flavors or anything, then I will add those later. But we're going to start with just the basic Manwich Copycat recipe. So let's get started on getting these ingredients together. I'm also going to add here that this makes about a pint. I'm going to say that because these are just basic fix as you go meal type recipes that I find online. Like, you know, you're going to make this in 30 minutes kind of thing. But it's going to equal to 1 can, and 1 can is usually between 14 and 15 ounces, which will be the equivalent of what we call a pint jar. I know a pint jar is 16 ounces, but it's usually the equivalent to what you buy in a can at the store, being 14.5 to 15 ounces or so. It's the equivalent. So we're going to say this recipe makes 1 pint. I'm going to go ahead and probably do this by 8. Just because I've got so much tomato sauce. So we're going to try to make between 7 and 8 pints. So I'm going to start off doing this by 8. And we'll go from there. Okay, so I've got everything mixed up, and I've got to immersion blend this because even though I chopped it up in the food processor, my family will not eat this chunky stuff. So I've got to go ahead and further process it with my immersion blender. The problem is I only have 2 plugs and they're both over here on this wall and the cord's not long enough. So I've got to take this over there, immersion blend it, and then I'll be right back. Okay, so that's a lot better. Yeah, that's a lot better. My family would not eat that stuff that would not go through the spoon. So I'm going to let this cook down, probably, again, for about 30 minutes. I've got it on medium-high right now, and it's just starting to boil. And I'll probably immersion blend it one more time after everything softens up. So I'll meet you back here in about 30 minutes. Okay, so this has been cooking about 20 minutes. After tasting it, it tastes straight up like peppers. It's very tomatoey, peppery kind of tasting. It's very savory, very bland. So I am going to go ahead and add the brown sugar, because I'm used to having sloppy joes with kind of a sweet taste on the back of your tongue kind of thing, and I do believe that's what this is missing. The sugar will also help tone down some of the pepper flavor. It'll help kind of marry it all together. So I am going to go ahead and add what most times I saw was a tablespoon of brown sugar. That being 1 tablespoon in a skillet, that's when you make it kind of thing. So for 1 can. And so this is going to be times 8. So I'll go ahead and do 8 tablespoons. That doesn't scare me. Not like we did in the barbecue sauce. So I'll go ahead and do 8 tablespoons of the brown sugar real quick. I'm going to let this simmer for about 5 minutes or so, and I'll come back and try it again. Alright, so I think I got it thick enough now, and I'll go ahead and let this start cooling off a little bit. I'll immersion blend it one more time, and I got most of the chunks out. So what I'm starting doing now is getting my pint jars ready. Got my water bath canner back here, so I'm just going to rinse off my clean pint jars and go ahead and put them in here and let them warm up with the water in the water bath canner. And again, remember, in the water bath canners, you don't have to use pressure canning jars like the Ball and Kerr and stuff like that. You don't have to use those jars. You can use or reuse old jelly jars. Also, don't forget to check your jars for cracks. Okay, so this recipe got exactly 8 pints. And from the original recipe, the only thing I did change was I added 12 tablespoons of brown sugar, which is going to be in a single pint jar, 1 1/4 tablespoons of brown sugar. And then I added 4 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce, which would be a 1/2 tablespoon in a regular pint jar. So down below, I'm going to have the single serve if you want to make it, you know, right then kind of recipe in the skillet, or 1 pint. And then below it, I'll do like an 8-pint recipe. So you can kind of half it if you want to do pint, or double it if you want to do more. So that way it kind of gives you an idea of, you know, just doing a 1 skillet, or whether you want to do it for canning. So now that we've got this in the water bath canner, which is actually the bottom of my pressure canner, we've got the water bath canner with 1 inch of water over the jars. We're going to let it water bath for about 20 minutes. And this being a really high acidic food with the sugar and all of the tomato juice and the onions and the peppers, all of that acidity in there, it would be okay to do 10 minutes, but I'm thinking of the thickness. I want to get it heated throughout. So we're going to water bath this for about 20 minutes for the pints, and then we'll take it out and we'll let it set for 24 hours.